Hello and welcome to this Journalism.co.uk screencast. My name's Abigail Edge and today I'll be showing you how to use Zapier to automate two different web apps. So if you're anything like me, you've got dozens of different apps that you're using on a weekly basis. What Zapier does is take two apps and make them work better together, so it's a great tool for maximising your efficiency and productivity. If you're using If This Then That, Zapier works in a very similar way. I wrote an article for Journalism.co.uk recently on how you can use Zapier to add new Twitter followers and their locations to a Google Docs spreadsheet, which you can see is currently up and running here. So as you can see, I've set up this spreadsheet so that every time I get a new follower on Twitter, I can see their Twitter handle, their username, their location, and also the URL of their profile. So now let's take a look at something different. How about adding mentions of a particular search term, hashtag, or username to a Google Docs spreadsheet? This would be particularly useful for journalists tracking stories around a particular beat or topic, to track breaking news, or even to monitor reactions to their own stories. First, we need to go to Zapier.com and sign up. I've got an account already, but if you don't, it only takes 2 seconds to create one. So this here is my dashboard, and Zapier, as I've mentioned, essentially works around making two different apps work well together, one of them being the trigger and one of them being the action. And when you create one of these, it's called a zap. For example, you might want to create a zap for posting an RSS feed to a Facebook page, or to send any images you've posted to Instagram to Dropbox. So Zapier integrates with more than 250 different web apps, including Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Dropbox, SoundCloud, you name it, it's basically on here. And if you're not sure where to start, you can simply click here where it says Explore Zaps. You can put in the different apps that you're using here. Let's add Facebook. Let's add YouTube. And one more, let's add Dropbox, and then it will actually bring up a whole host of zaps that are recommended for you. So that's some great ones to get started with. We know what we're going to do. As I said earlier, we are going to add any new mentions on Twitter to a Google Docs spreadsheet. Now I want to create a brand new zap, so I'm going to click here where it says Make a New Zap, and from here you need to choose your trigger and your action. So I'm going to choose my trigger app, which is Twitter, and from the drop down here, I'm going to choose the option of search mention, which means that whenever a certain keyword or hashtag is mentioned on Twitter, that's going to trigger something in my action app. Now my action app will of course be Google Docs, and what I want to happen when that particular search mention comes up on Twitter is to create a new spreadsheet row. Then click Continue. I've already added my Twitter account, my Google Docs account to Zapier, but if you haven't, you can add them in here just by logging in. You can also test the connections just to make sure they're working properly by clicking here. Next, you need to tell Zapier what search term, hashtag, or username you want to track on Twitter. Now, because we've got our News Rewired Digital Journalism Conference coming up on the 23rd of July in London, that's definitely not a plug, by the way, I'm going to search for the hashtag News Rewired. So every time somebody mentions that hashtag on Twitter, either in the run-up to the event or on the day itself, I can add that to a Google spreadsheet so I can keep track of what people are saying about it. Now I'm going to add in some custom filters. This is the information I want to show in my spreadsheet. So when somebody uses the hashtag News Rewired, I want to know their Twitter username, their real name, their location. I want to know what their tweet was. I want to know the URL of that tweet. And I want to know what date they actually tweeted it on. Now, in these results, I don't want to include any tweets from Journalism News or News Rewired because obviously those are our accounts, we manage them, we know when we're using the hashtag, and it's not as important for us to keep track of them. So I'm going to remove those from these results using this filter, which is user ID, text does not contain, and then I need their Twitter ID number. And to get that, I'm going to go to the website twitterid.com and just put in the username, click convert, and it will bring up the Twitter ID number, which I can then paste back into Zapier here. And the same again here. Then hit continue. The next step is to tell Zapier which Google spreadsheet I want to send the information to. So let's go over to Google Docs. And in the words of Blue Peter, here's one I made earlier. This is just a basic Google spreadsheet with columns related to those filters I just set up on Zapier. You can see here we have username, Twitter handle, location, tweet text, tweet URL, and the date it was sent on. Now, to help Zapier recognize these columns, I need to put in some sample data. So I'm just going to add in my own details to the spreadsheet here. If I go back to Zapier, I can add in the spreadsheet I created in Google Docs and tell it which worksheet to send the information to, like so. Now, if Zapier doesn't recognize that spreadsheet immediately, you can just refresh the page. Once I've done that, I need to tell Zapier to which column I want to send the information I set up in those filters earlier. So, Twitter handle is going to be going to the username. Name will be going to full name. Tweet text will be going to text. Location will of course be going to user location. Date will be going to created at, and the tweet URL will be going to the URL. So next we're going to do something a little bit clever. You can actually test your spreadsheet using random sample data to see if it's working properly. So I'm going to click Test Twitter Trigger, and I'm going to click Test Zap with this sample. You can see one of the samples they've generated has been blocked by one of the results. I'm guessing it's either from Journalism News or News Rewired. Let's click that and find out. So you can see that is from our News Rewired account, and that's why it hasn't shown up. So my filters are working how I want them to. And then I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet here and see if it's working. And you can see there that information has gone in. The final step is to give your Zap a name to make it easily identifiable. I'm going to call this one Mentions on Twitter, and then click the orange button to turn Zap on. This Zap will now run automatically in the background every 15 minutes and update the spreadsheet accordingly. And that's it. With the free Zapier account, you can have 5 Zaps running at any given time, but if you want to use more than that, you can take out a paid-for plan from $15, that's about £9 a month, and that will give you 20 Zaps. So that's all from me today. Look out for the next Journalism.co.uk screencast next week, where we'll be demonstrating another journalism tool. Bye for now.